all this creativity or creation that comes from the sacral chakra, right? And if that is blocked, in many ways, all our expression is blocked. Whether that's, how we express ourselves, how we love, how we, create. And this creation energy, which is a sexual energy, is such a sacred thing that comes from such a sacred source. These things are taboo in a lot of, for a lot of people in the Arab culture. This is not talked about. Sexuality, sexual energy, all of that is not talked about because it has been shamed. Then healing myself and getting rid of all these identities and getting rid of the prejudices that were created, only then was I able to see the beauty that was already there in Sufi poetry, that I wasn't able to see because of my own veil. Or if I am to say that I am on this, path of spirituality, and I am tapping into the Sufi wisdom to liberate myself, how can I say that if I have to do it looking only a certain way, or portraying myself, or exporting a specific image just to fit into that spirituality? It really defeats the purpose. Music just happens to be the source of creation. ويا سمعي ويا بصري
I just feel like you just made love to me. If you think about that, what does that mean? She's got a vibe. Or Fadi, you've got a vibe. It means you are vibrating a frequency. You've got energy. There is magnetism. Everything is coming back to frequency, to sound, to vibration. Welcome to the Enlightened DXB podcast. I'm your host, Erika Misako-Welch, and I'm so delighted because today I have none other than Fadi Rifaai with me, who is a beautiful artist and a musician that has touched my heart. And I'm so grateful to have you here with us today.
Oh my God, that's very kind.
I think the best place to start is, well, first of all, I want to speak about why I'm really excited to have you here. And that is primarily because when I started this podcast, I wanted to give everyone access to the transmissions you can get on soul journeys. You know, when you're at this retreat and there's this amazing facilitator or there's an energy worker that I'm working with, and I wanted to give that transmission. And it's so apt when I think of you, even though some people might be like, wow, isn't your podcast about health and wellness and spirituality and sexuality and tantra and all of this? And they're like, how does a Sufi poet, a musician, someone who sings to these frequencies fit in? And it can be best described by the first time I remember really meeting you. And I know we've had this discussion already of like, I think we met before. But the time that I
Haven't we all, though?
Right? Haven't we all met in the stars before? But the first time I met you, it was at a mutual friend's sort of conscious uncoupling party. And we went to go celebrate their life together. And then also to wish them the best kind of parting ways. And there was a karaoke stereo and a set there, and some of us had really embarrassed ourselves earlier singing and having fun. And then I think it was Nicola that asked you to go to the speaker. And someone said, oh, Fadi's going to sing Sufi poetry for us. And I thought, what? And you had the whole room in tears in 2 songs in. And like literally we were all hanging on bated breath. You just closed your eyes and looked at something on your phone, and then you just winged it. It was like you were connected to something other than what was there in the room, and then your voice helped all of us connect to that source.
I mean, isn't, for me, Sufi poems and the wisdom of the Sufi poems is just the way of the heart, the way of love. And isn't that kind of the basis of all connections that we have, all spirituality? The understanding that we are all connected, and that inclusiveness. It is also the doorway to connect with yourself, to know that I am full and I am empty. And it's kind of the same, I don't want to say philosophy, but the same teaching of all different spirituality lines. And yeah, so I believe that, and I also really believe that wellness is never separated. You can't really have a healthy physical body without also tapping into your emotional body or energetic body, and really kind of having a holistic approach to it. So I don't see that any of that is separate from what you're doing and what you're providing. So yeah, I mean, this transmission that you talk about is something that is a gift for me as well, as much as I try to touch other people with it. Every time I have a Sufi sound journey that is coming up, that we're leading, whether it's public or private, I really yearn for it. It is a gift from the universe to myself.
Yeah.
It is a meditation for myself. And I always share this when we are leading a journey. And I say I'm really grateful because I wait for these journeys for myself to transform, and every single time I change, something changes within me. So yeah.
I really love that because, as I was hearing you, so many little light bulbs were going off. And going back to this point about spirituality and religion, and I would say there's a lot of people out there that actually music is their religion. And it is the purest form. It's sort of uncluttered by dogma, and it's an expression. It's an ability to express energy, express feeling, as you said. And actually, I just linked it to Tantra as well. In Tantra, the sort of the sacral chakra, or where creation and sex and that energy comes from, is also very connected to the throat chakra. And so your ability to express, your ability to have a voice is very much connected to how embodied you are, and then how able you are to create something. And the music, just like sex to some degree, is the creation of a co-creation of something, exactly in that way, in the Tantra way, which is to be connected to source and to be pulled to a calling versus to force something. It's really something that gets pulled out of you. And I really feel that whenever you sing.
100%. I mean, like you said, it's all this creativity or creation that comes from the sacral chakra, right? And if that is blocked in many ways, all our expression is blocked. Creativity is blocked. And if we relate it to, and again, these things are taboo in a lot of, for a lot of people in the Arab culture. This is not talked about. Sexuality, sexual energy, all of that is not talked about because it has been shamed across, cultures, not only probably in the Arab world, but unfortunately until now. And so probably us talking about this poetry or spirituality or spiritual music in any form, and relating it to all of us, whether that's how we express ourselves, how we love, how we create, and this creation energy, which is the sexual energy, is such a sacred thing that comes from such a sacred source, and I always get people to comment. I get a lot of comments from people sometimes about leading Sufi sound journeys or tapping into Sufi poetry, but at the same time, singing things that are maybe sometimes more commercial, or dressing a certain way or not dressing a certain way, or playing with Sufi poems and Sufi music in ways that are not the traditional ways of portraying Sufi poems. But again, it's all of that is just more identification and more labels that are being put on spiritual paths and spiritual practices that are meant and created as a tool for the liberation of people from everything.
Yeah.
And they are created for the liberation of people of these labels as well. And so if I am to preach, or if I am to say that I am on this, path of spirituality, and I am tapping into the Sufi wisdom to liberate myself, how can I say that if I have to do it looking only a certain way, or portraying myself, or exporting a specific image just to fit into that spirituality? It really defeats the purpose
100%.
of liberation.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think we do forget that, right? To ultimately, like, what is it? Power, freedom, and by power I mean in the light sense of like us finding and stepping into our own power. Freedom to be authentically us in whatever expression that is, and then to be able to feel and express and share love. That is what spirituality and most religions were born out of.
100%. It's so simple.
So
yet
simple.
So complicated.
It's so hard.
And it's so complicated yet so simple.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, in yoga, they kind of always kind of tap into that, as in, there are asanas, there are tools, there are your sadhana that you do all the time, but they always say this is all made and formulated because we have a mind that keeps chattering, and in reality you should be able to just close your eyes for a couple of minutes and get enlightened.
Yeah,
because
100%.
Everything that we need is already here. It's already within us. It's all of these tools that we're using, which are amazing tools. They're effective tools. Whether it's these sound bowls that are, that help a lot of people, whether it's things that we use like incense or Palo Santo that do have an impact on us physically with aroma and the chemistry behind it. But also sometimes all of these tools are there to just remind us.
Absolutely.
Just like there are people out there around us that come and cross paths with us to remind us of what we already know.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we all need this community. We all need those tools. We all need these things. But it's all to find something that we already know. And music just happens to be the source of creation.
Yeah.
Everything around us vibrates.
Is energy. Yeah.
Everything vibrates, like on an actual physical molecular level. There is vibration in everything, and everything that vibrates is sound. And
I actually love that in our society today, there are all of these woke, cool words that are coming online that tell us how the collective is sort of becoming more enlightened to this. Like, oh, she's got a vibe.
Yeah.
If you think about that, what does that mean? She's got a vibe. Or Fadi, you've got a vibe. It means you are vibrating a frequency. You've got energy.
I like
there is
that.
Magnetism. Everything is coming back to
Yes.
frequency, to sound, to vibration. And I also think about when you brought up yoga, and when I think of yoga, I often think of meditating to the sound of Om. And they've actually proven scientifically that humming makes your whole body vibrate
100%.
and shake, and it actually enlivens or activates your vagus nerve, which is connected from your brainstem to every organ in your body, to relax it, to drive the parasympathetic nervous system.
You know, this thing with listening to music or attending a sound journey and all of that is amazing. It's beautiful because all of this vibration will affect your body in ways that we understand and others that we still don't. The thing that I always notice is that the only person who can give you the gift of vibration, sound vibration from inside of you is you. And that's chanting, you know, that's using these mantras, these words, these specific keys that have been identified by spiritual communities around the world. And you can see it everywhere in every spiritual practice.
And I also want to say, I have to believe that before, Hinduism came with chanting, we had access to this too, right? And I just think about watching my little nieces coloring in the corner and they're just humming to themselves. How many of us have seen that? And it's because children just know, they innately know that that's going to make them happy, calm them down. They're regulating their nervous systems and they don't even know what they're doing.
We know everything. And again, this is why I say it's very simple, but it's very complicated. I believe it's very simple because our very nature knows exactly what this body needs and knows exactly how to understand this world and how to function. But at the same time, it's very complicated because the logic-dominated power of human beings had created this system that they thought is better than the natural system. And it's a lot of arrogance of, okay, no, actually we should do it this way. We should do it that way. We should live in enclosed spaces. We shouldn't be in nature. We should be more comfortable. And we see ourselves, we're living in a time where we're more comfortable than ever on this planet.
And yet more sick than ever.
Yet more sick than ever. And it just has to, invoke this question within us of like, really, is what we're doing right? What do we need to do? And really what we need to do is always really simple. It's like, oh, I want this therapy and that therapy. Again, they're amazing, they're beautiful, all of it is beautiful, but we only need this many tools because we are separating ourselves from the truth of what life is and what we need to do. Because we're separating ourselves from, oh, I can be healthy even if I stay home and I take my vitamin D supplement and whatnot. But we won't step outside and walk barefoot on this earth and take what we need from the sun.
It's amazing to me. Every summer, as many of us, we try and escape Dubai's heat. And I go to Europe and I live on some of my friends', farms and these sort of things. And I find I don't need to go pay for my class pass or go to the gym or go to yoga. I'm fitter than ever. I'm not working out, but I'm walking outside. I'm breathing fresh air. I'm tending to the earth, to the gardens. We're cooking, home-cooked meals together, eating in community. And all of a sudden, it's like, I'm eating healthier. I'm not eating like crazy different, but somehow I'm just healthier.
Well, that's the thing, right? We're isolating ourselves from wellness and then seeking it.
And then paying to, And this is the other part, there's so much spaciousness when I live like that. But when I come back to the city, everyone's like running around trying to get everything done. And they're like, I got to go work out. I got to go do this. I have to socialize. And these are like little increments of time in our calendar that we're like planning in to try and optimize. But if we just lived in community, if we lived in tribe, we wouldn't have to plan. We'd literally just sort of whimsically walk around and find someone who wants to have tea with us for 5 minutes, and we'd sort of waft in and out of work, and it would be so much more seamless and so much more beautiful, I think.
But then, and I always bring this, discussion to myself always. It's like, because I tap into all of that and I feel that, and in these moments where I do feel connected, or when we had that gathering that you put together, and when you feel that much love and you feel that much flow, and then all of a sudden the next day you're like, okay, I need to work, I need to pay these bills, I need medical insurance, etc., etc. And then you look around you and you realize that you live in a system where a lot of these ideals are really difficult to get to.
Yeah.
They're not impossible, but there are people who created a community for themselves and created this, this source of wellness for themselves. But it's not always easy. It is a change that has to come across years, and we have to be, I think, realistic about it, and not live in an imaginary bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we need to understand what work needs to be done to reverse a lot of these systems that have actually created so much despair, so much mental illness that is around us, and that we had to work through all these traumas, work through all these social stigmas and all of that really limit us, that cage us, that put us in boxes, so many different boxes, and doesn't allow this genius creativity to come out. And whether that was created intentionally by people, by systems, political or otherwise, to limit people, because how else are you going to control them? Or whether it was actually created by other people who really thought that they could enhance the system. And sometimes, we make mistakes, regardless of why and regardless of all these things. We have to understand what things actually need to improve and to start on them, so that 50 years from now, it's not the same.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I can't remember who I was reading, but there was a historian that had said that perhaps in terms of human well-being and health, the biggest mistake we made was moving from the nomadic stage to the agrarian stage, where we decided to stay put and build a house. And instead of moving with our animals, with the seasons and following food and staying in tune and in like intuition, we really have built systems so that we don't have to be intuitive, so that we don't have to know what time it is or what our body is telling us, because our calendar is telling us what we should be doing. And I personally feel maybe at some time, there were systems put in place to control people and masses for sure. But generally, I feel that people are good, and we just constantly, just like moving into agrarian societies, we make mistakes thinking that it will be better. And in fact, there actually, I don't know if you ever read this book. It was called something like Guns, Germs, and Steel. It was a really famous book, like 20 years ago. And it really went through the history of humankind. And they spoke about how, we would have thought that as soon as we created cities, we would be healthier, happier, well-fed. But what ended up happening was, for the first time ever, they caused massive deaths with plagues, with sickness, with unsanitary streets. These were all things that they didn't think about, But once you start living in larger and larger villages that become cities, and you have just, when you think of like London not having a sewage system, even like a couple 100 years ago, how were people living 1,000 years ago? You really start to realize that we start compounding problems on us that we never really thought about before.
It's like this guru I actually like follow and been my inspiration, kind of like always emphasizes on the fact that eventually science and spirituality will meet at a point, because we're all, as human beings, we're trying to seek the same truth with different ways,
with
different methodology, and different tools. One is more logical, dissecting things, cutting them open, looking at them, putting all the details and the data, and that works. But sometimes it just takes a long time. And another is experiential, of like feeling into things. When in yoga for thousands of years, they've been preserving water in a specific way and putting it in a place for a while, and putting some flowers around it or inside of it, and putting some herbs in it, and they didn't know the science behind it. But then so many years later, we realize how the molecular structure of water changes, and it preserves memory of things that are put in it. If you put a flower or a different kind of flower, it looks different and acts different within your body. And so what I always tell people around me, I just say, do you have to really wait so many years until science proves something for you to start reaping the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Just because of the arrogance of not wanting to just experience it and feel into it. And if it really feels right, to trust that that's something that is real and true happening to you. People who do forest bathing, you know, they've always known that there's something that's happening.
Yeah.
They didn't need the science.
Yeah.
Only recently that they've started to research it and go like, oh, really? There are specific secretions that are happening within the human body when it's hugging a tree.
Right.
How is it happening? We still don't know. And so
just for people who don't know what forest bathing is, forest bathing is literally when you are walking into a beautiful forest. I have dreams of this at nighttime, like mossy ground, and you're walking and you're literally, you know, taking in all of the greenery, all of the sights. I can almost like transport myself there because I grew up in a place full of beautiful forests. And they have actually done many studies on this, and it does change your brain chemistry. And in fact, if you spend 3 days, 72 hours in nature, your brain literally, like the neurons and how they're connected, shift and change. And so that's why
100%.
when you do vision quests or you're out, you know, camping even alone or with friends, if you can go for at least 2 nights, you can like really viscerally feel in your body an entirely different frequency. You are connected to the frequency of the earth. You know, that's how long it takes us to unplug from the frequency of the cities we live in and the lifestyles we lead.
I mean, science and logic is like, and again, like it's not to undermine the importance, because obviously, I mean, I come from an engineering background. I love science. I love physics.
I love that you brought that in. Yeah, my father's a scientist and I have an undergrad in neuropsychology.
I love it. And we're not here to undermine it, because we're only able to sit here and do this and have cameras around us because of it.
Absolutely.
So again, and the comfort of all of that, it's very important for us to create tools that are important for us to live a more comfortable life. But it is like a turtle in terms of its speed when it comes to what we can and should be able to know on an existential level. It's like we're looking at this, you know, small circle, and it might take us 100 years to understand things and how they work here, and they will help us along the way because they will create technologies and beautiful things. But then on existential level, we're trying to answer questions, the simplest questions of existence. Where did we come from? Where are we leaving to? And science isn't even close to try to understand. Where is this whole universe being held? How's it being held? We have theories, we have ideas that are all stemming from our logic that, again, is very slow to find these things. And this is why people go to music, to dance, to movement. We know how important it is. It has taken a different form. And you can call it whatever is possible. People call it, you know, going to a rave, or like going to the club for a dance, you know, or sometimes people go to an ecstatic dance. So we have different labels to them. And sure, some people might feel like one is more conscious than the other. But again, at the root of it, everyone understands the power of music and movement. Absolutely. To liberate, to get out of our heads, to tap into something a bit better, to feel that ecstasy, to feel this connection with the source. And again, a lot of people say people go to church, to yoga class, and to a bar for the same reason. They're just using different tools. We all want to find happiness and peace and connect to the source that we know exists. But we're just doing it differently. And this is the gift that music has given me, you know, with the Sufi sound journeys and other expressions of music, where in the beginning I was just drawn to it from when I was a young child. When I was a kid, I would just go out.
Were you always singing?
I was always making music one way or the other. And I would just, you know, sometimes in the house, if things aren't very, you know, calm, or there are things that are very stressful or difficult for a child to process, or something has happened, I would just gravitate towards the piano that we had, and I would just sit for hours and just play nothing, like just whatever comes to mind. And for those 2-3 hours, I would just feel so at peace. And as a kid, I didn't know what it meant, but I just knew I was gravitating towards it. But then, as time passed and I was growing up, I started latching onto, oh, I want to become a musician so I can become popular, so I become famous. I wanted the fame part of it because I wanted to prove myself, because I wanted to validate those parts of me that weren't validated. And I wasn't aware of trauma, and I wasn't aware of having to work through things. So again, it took that, and I was like, oh, but I really feel unhappy and unfulfilled. And it just took so much time and work, inner work, for me to get to a point where I just want to express this music because it's a responsibility that I have, because it's a gift for myself and it's a gift for others. What comes out of it, I will welcome. It's not about saying no to abundance. It's not about saying no to anything beautiful that comes with, something becoming a success. It's not about that, but that should never be the purpose and the goal.
Yeah.
It will be a byproduct of authenticity, of authentic expression. And yeah, so now this is where I express from. And since I've done that, I've felt so much better, and I've felt opportunities coming rather than me trying to strive towards them.
I love that.
Yeah.
Fadi, you and I can riff for like hours on end.
Probably.
But I want all of the listeners and all of those watching to get a feel and experience themselves what it is that you have, this beautiful gift that you say is for yourself and then for others, first and foremost. Yeah, to me, you feel like an extension, like as if you're giving me an extension cord. Some people loan you their nervous systems. I feel like you loan them a telephone line to source, to God, to the mysteries of the universe, or to themselves, to just go within. And I brought 3 special singing bowls with me today because we didn't want to go through all the chakras. But the first one I thought we'd start with is the singing bowl that is tuned to the frequency of the throat chakra. And I wanted to play it and for you to just feel into it. I want you to feel into that energy as a kid that you were playing the piano, connecting to the mysteries of the universe, or maybe just like a calmness within. And then, sing to the theme of, freedom, expression, to have your voice, like your authentic voice. Are you up for it?
Always. Up to connect and see what comes, for myself. And we'll see what happens.
And in the meantime, for those of you listening to this beautiful sound bowl, just feel into your body and see where it resonates.
قلبي يحدثني بأنك متلفي قلبي يحدثني بأنك روحي فداك روحي فداك عرفت أم لم تعرفي قلبي يحدثني بأنك متلفي روحي فداك آه آه عرفت أم لم تعرفي لم أقض حق هواك إن كنت الذي لم أقض فيه أسا ومثلي من يفي لم أقض حق هواك إن كنت الذي لم أقض في أسا ومثلي من يفي قلبي يحدثني بأنك متلفي.
Beautiful. You know, I'm just, 15 years here, and I'm just learning Arabic now. And so it's definitely not good enough, even though I think I'm learning Fusha, and a lot of Sufism is sung in Fusha, right?
Correct.
Classical Arabic. I'm clearly not learning the right words on Duolingo to decipher. But every time I hear you, the beauty of it seems to be that I don't actually need to know what the words really mean, because I can feel it in my system as you're singing. But if you would you like to explain a little bit for those that do love to have a little glimpse into what those lyrics meant?
I believe that the words and the lyrics and the poetry provide a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom that has been built into them, into the meaning behind them. And I believe that creates emotion in whoever is singing. It creates emotion in the sense it is a door for the singer, the person sharing or channeling, to feel a specific emotion, to feel into a specific area of this human experience, that then becomes a door that allows them to channel the melodies and the dynamic and the expression in the way that it's made, that is received by anyone, regardless if they understand the words. It is not about the words. The words are just a tool for us to access that emotion, to bring that out. And it can actually be accessed without the words, with just vocals.
Yeah.
Which I have recently been sharing with more experimental vocal sharings that have absolutely no lyrics, that sometimes do kind of limit the emotion of what is being said, especially if they're not, spiritual, or they're not deep, any lyrics. However, the Sufi poetry, it's like one builds on the other, because the wisdom in it is absolutely spectacular. Like in one sentence, sometimes there's a wisdom that you go like, oh wow, how have I not seen this? And so I understand what you say with just relating to it and connecting to it without understanding a word. because of that process that is happening within here before it is being transmitted. And it's the same for me when I listen to, because I listen to every kind of music in every kind of language, in every kind of genre.
Me too.
And I just love it, and a lot of it just touches me. All of a sudden I'm listening to something and I just start crying.
Yeah.
And I kind of also relate when it comes to yoga. The reason I chose yoga as my path, which I believe still is at heart, is because I remember I was wanting to get into Sufi poetry and Sufi teachings and to understand them more. And I had a resistance towards it. Because of the language and because it reminded me of our culture and the Arab culture. And I was triggered and traumatized by a lot in the Arab culture, not because of issues within it, because of my own experiences and whatever I went through and my trauma and what it was. And I needed to find something that I had no prejudice towards, that I had no judgment towards, that I had no preconceived conception of. And that was yoga, because I didn't understand these mantras. I just had to sit and receive. I just had to sit and chant without relating it to specific ways of thinking, or, oh, I would expect this, or I'm going to take this, or this is what we're chanting for. I had no idea.
So the satsang or the chanting was your doorway back to music and 100%. Finding your voice.
And then only through that, and through then healing myself and getting rid of all these identities and getting rid of the prejudices that were created, only then was I able to see the beauty that was already there in Sufi poetry that I wasn't able to see because of my own veil.
See, it's so interesting because out of all of the poets out there, I think, a lot of people love Rumi. But for me, I came across it, I don't know how, in time before Google, I came across Rumi poetry very, very young. And obviously translated into English. But I just fell in love with the way that he communicated the world. And it obviously wasn't sang, it was literally from the word. And I do have a love of the lexicon of languages. I love, I speak Japanese. I love that they have a very specific word for precisely that instant of that kind of twinkle that falls off a snowflake, Yeah. And it's like, every cell in my body just vibrates with joy when there's words like that just really, they enliven me. And Rumi, and then later Sufism, and I still am feeling so drawn to it. As the more you go into it, you realize it is all heart. It is all love.
That's all it is.
Being heart-centered beings.
That's all what it is, because they realized we are all one. We are all love. There's no other to love or try to accept.
We are all the same. We
are all the
one.
same. And when people say this, people in the spiritual community, I mean, granted, some people say a lot of things that they don't experience, and that's also fine, because it's also about, experiencing it slowly, and we're all attempting to experience things more deeply. The Sufi sound journeys that I was doing 3 years ago, it's not that I was not authentic. I was authentic at the time. I was meeting myself where I was able to meet myself, and I was expressing from that space. But now I have a much deeper relationship with these journeys and where I go and how I express. And probably it'll be different in another 3 years. And it's not to invalidate people's experiences. But when a lot of people say, and this is why, we hear these things a lot, like we are all one, it's all inclusive. But in reality, even if you want to approach this from like a logical point of view, in reality, we do come from this earth, and we go back to it. We are all one because you are inseparable from the air that you breathe. And the air that you breathe is inseparable from the universe that we live in. We are always connected. It's not about, it's not a philosophy. It's not an imaginary bubble idea. Just try to isolate yourself in a small room and not interact with life. Don't drink water. Don't eat food. Don't interact. Don't breathe air. For a couple of minutes, you're gone. Try to separate yourself from this mechanism for a couple of minutes. You're not here anymore. And so this idea of interconnectedness is not a philosophy. It's just that we are blind to it.
It's truth.
We're just blind to it.
Yeah.
It's just the truth. And being in nature just reminds us, when you see how everything is so interconnected to create this life. How we are connected. We would not have been birthed if our mothers were not in tune with the moon cycles. We are always connected. We are brought to this world because of this interconnectedness. And yes, so I guess Sufi, the Sufi way understood that very well, to the point where it didn't need to teach anything. You don't have to do any specific thing. It's just reminding us. There is a poem that I really, really love. It's one of my favorite poems, and it says كل بلاء علي مني فليتني قد أخذت عني. And what that means is, every issue that I have, every obstacle that I have, every suffering that I have is caused by me. And I just wish I was taken away from me. And it just resonates so much, because in reality, and this is where it gets like complicated, because people are going to go like, well, how am I the solution and I'm the problem at the same time?
This is life. This is about empowering ourselves and stepping into our sovereignty and recognizing that we have agency, and also we are humble, tiny fractals of the universe, like everyone else.
It's both of these together.
Yeah.
It's like looking at a guru, right? An enlightened guru, seeing all the impact and power they have. And then looking at that guru and seeing that they have to grow old, and they have to feel sick, and they have to die or be frail at least, because we all go through this process. And then just seeing that the marrying of the two is the journey. This acceptance and understanding that I am a super being because I came here as a human. I do have the power to change the world. And at the same time, I do live in a body that is weakening day by day, minute by minute, and that will go back to this earth. The marrying of the two and the acceptance of them and the loving of it is the journey.
And perfect segue then is to really tap into the heart chakra, which is where all of this is really born. I feel like it's created in our sacral, and it moves up into our identity and our solar plexus. And then it's really, once we crack open the heart, that we get these really powerful Sufi poetry and singing happening. And so, bring a little
the heart chakra
aid here in F. I'll first do it.
Amana aman, 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 aman. Aman, 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 aman. يا عين عيني وجودي يا مدى هممي يا منطقي عبارتي وإيمائي يا عين عيني وجودي يا مدى هممي يا منطقي وعبارتي وإيمائي يا كل كلي سمعي ويا بصري يا جملتي وطبائدي وأجزائي يا عين عيني وجودي يا مدى هممي يا كل كلي ويا سمعي ويا بصري
I just feel like you just made love to me.
I always do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I always do. I mean, making love to life, making love to myself,
Yeah.
to everyone, to life around us, to the opportunity that we have every day to create a world. That curiosity and that privilege that we have to literally think a thought, and all of a sudden we're sitting here having a conversation. That privilege of being alive, waking up, opening our eyes, seeing a little bit of sun, being able to breathe, and know that we're alive one more day. When a lot of other people didn't get that chance, they passed. But to dwell in that privilege and really give it its value and be grateful for that. You know? Yeah.
Darling, I wish we had another hour.
Hey, has it passed?
It's coming to that time.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy. It felt like 3 minutes.
Yes, exactly, right? And so people and I also will be hungry for so much more. Tell us about this new album you've put together that you've just released.
So for years, I've been just making music and keeping it on my laptop because I was like, oh, it's not perfect. And being stuck in that cycle that, wanting to make something perfect through our logical mind, it just imprisons everything and blocks all the doors from opening. And so this year I realized, I'm like, nothing is going to happen. No touching of people, no impact is going to happen if, I keep doing this. And so I set the intention this year of putting things out there that are authentic and that meet me where I am now, in what I can present, in what I can record, in what I can put out there, and for that to then open the next thing and have that ripple effect. And so this year I'm actually, we've released this album, which is Jungle Meets Desert, and it's
Jungle Meets Desert.
Yes.
Oh, I love.
And
Already
it is a collaboration with an amazing artist who does tribal live looping and vocal interpretations of natural sounds and a lot of instruments. His name is Janak Spacha. He plays in beautiful ecstatic dances around Europe and tours every year. And we were attending a retreat that was here, and we actually happened to be living in the same house, me and him. And we woke up early for a yoga session, and he heard the adhan, the call for prayer. And the call for prayer is usually chanted in Hijaz, a specific scale, a musical scale that's called Hijaz. And he was listening to it, and he left the room, and he went outside. He was standing on the balcony, and he was just listening to it. He's like, "Oh, that's beautiful." And I started sharing with him that I, sing, and we started just sharing ideas. And all of a sudden, we, 10, 20 days after that, we got into the studio with the support of Expand and Evolve, who produced this session. And we just got in the studio, invited Sandu, which is a beautiful tabla player, and Lu'ay on the oud. And we jammed together for the very first time.
Wow, first time? You didn't even get together before this?
Never. He had heard me do the Sufi sound journey before. And we just got together. We're like, let's just do it. And
so it was completely improvised, intuitive.
Completely.
You didn't know what you would come out with when you walked in.
No idea. And I love that because it is so true to the essence of what we're trying to put out there, and putting ourselves as well in that state of flow and really testing that. And so we recorded a live EP of around 30 minutes that is fully recorded and filmed, but we also kind of sectioned that and separated a number of songs out of it. So the album has all the separate songs, but also the full journey for whoever would like to listen to it. So it is out on all streaming platforms. The videos are out on YouTube as well, so you can see that experience.
And we'll have this all linked up in our show notes. It's called Jungle Meets Desert.
Yes.
And under your name and all of
Correct,
the artists.
my name, if it's on the streaming platforms, it's under my name and Janak Spacha.
Okay.
So they'll be able to find it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so
I'm
that's
so
it.
proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
I remember you going through a few dark nights of the soul as you were transitioning from, let's say, the normal corporate life to really following your soul's calling, and to just see you everywhere now doing so well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Such a blessing to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. I love you so much, and you know that. I appreciate your presence in my life. I appreciate you extending this invitation and this soulful, genuine conversation. Thank you for holding the space. Thank you for sharing beautiful energy through the sound bowls and through your presence and everything you share and provide. I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Hey there. If you like this episode and you're getting some beautiful transmissions or are feeling inspired to support this podcast in any way, the best way to do that is to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube, or wherever it is that you're plugging into the Enlightened DXB podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Enlightened DXB. If you want to reach out to any of the guests we have on the show, you can check out their profiles and their work at www.enlighteneddxb.com. And for those of you in Dubai looking for community, retreats, or additional resources, you can also sign up to our emailing list there. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Until then, I wish you more joy, more ease, and a little sprinkle of grace.